Welcome to Baltimore, baby. Airport, picking up some luggage. Gonna go and get a car, and then we're gonna drive to Maryland, see the lovely people at PRS. Stay tuned.
In beautiful, sunny Stevensville, Maryland.
Look at this, it's a wonderful day.
Yes, even the sun has come to hang out with us. So we're going in here to meet the beautiful people, including the man, the myth, and the legend that is Paul Reed Smith. Squirrels, look at them, they're getting feisty. Give me my nuts back.
Did you grab my nuts?
Anyway, right, so let's go in.
Let's do it, come on.
Hey guys, welcome back to Andertons TV. I'm here with Rob. He is going to take us round the amazing Paul Reed Smith factory. Rob, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell people what you do at Paul Reed Smith?
Sure, I'm Rob Carhart. I'm the Director of New Product Engineering. I've worked with Paul for about the last 31 years, and I'm looking forward to giving you guys a tour through the factory today.
This is going to be amazing. We're going to catch up with Paul a bit later on as well. Hopefully catch up with Paul Miles as well, who's the head of private stock. I would like you to comment below. Apparently this eagle here doesn't have a name, so comment below what you think we should call him. I think we should call him Paul, but yeah, maybe you've got a better name. Anyway, lead on.
Okay, let's go. Lee, this is our rough cut area. And obviously we got a variety of different types of wood in here. And this is the area where we initially stage all of our lumber. So it's shipped in here. You can see a variety of different materials around you. We've got a lot of mahogany, some that'll be backwood, other larger pieces that'll be neckwood. We've got stuff already processed back here. A lot of maple tops we're going through here right now. And essentially what we're doing in this area is grading all the wood, doing a quality check. We're going to dimension it to a workable size for our processes later on in the wood shop. And then it's really the first part of the drying process. A lot of the wood will come in kiln dried. Other stuff comes in relatively wet and may need to spend months out here just air drying before we even start any of the force drying process. And again, along with the grading process and queuing it up, we have some long-term storage of some more exotic materials in here, but it's all processed through this area. We've got a couple people who work back here. Rob Heward, another gentleman, John. Rob's been working for PRS for 30 plus years. We started around the same time as well. He is really an expert in his field. Right now he's taking a look at the quality of some maple tops, and you can see
there's some big pieces.
I
must admit, I think I'm used to seeing lumber come in sort of almost ready pre-cut, but I see you've got some enormous pieces
so you can
here.
Let's take a walk down here and you can see. So we've got some larger pieces now. All this stuff we're looking at, Lee, is going to be processed for backwood, or if it's a solid mahogany guitar. And some of the pieces are pretty long. I've seen even larger ones than this on occasion come in. And Rob is going to go through and process it. That's when you'll see it starts to get cut up for you know, a back size, a more manageable side for our builders and CNC operators.
Have you done any more? I remember, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago you did some reclaimed stuff.
We did.
There's anything like that that's cool, or is that not something that you've got at the moment?
We did, and I remember that, I think that was relatively popular. Those models seem to go pretty quick. We're always on the eye, you know, have our eye out for something like that.
I saw this and I wondered whether that was sort of some reclaimed stuff, or if that's just how it comes through when it's rough cut.
I'm not sure. This may just be kind of oxidized from when it came in. Yep, and I'm not exactly sure what the species of that is. You can see, as you know, with most electric guitars, we're using pretty traditional materials, right? So you'll see a lot of maple tops here. We've got swamp ash and alder blanks for backs, of course mahogany. We have some more fingerboard processing, which is typically rosewood and Brazilian. And we'll take a look at some of those drying processes as we.
You've got tons of flame maple here, haven't you? Tons of it.
There's
great.
lots of it. Well, you know, when you look at all the mahogany, maple tops, fingerboards, we're well over 10,000 board feet a month in here that we're processing. So these guys handle a lot of wood.
Wow.
Some of that will go directly to our drying process for use in manufacturing, and then other stuff may get stored longer term, and then we'll store some stuff off-site as well. As in, you know, within the wood buying industry, when you find good stuff out there, you buy it, whether you have the demand for it or not necessarily. So we've got some inventory invested in certainly in wood, and a lot of it's stored here and a few other locations as well. But it's always impressive to see stacks of all this beautiful wood. You know, in talking with Jack, who you spoke to make a good guitar, you gotta have good design, but you have to have good ingredients, right? Yeah. You have to have good people working on it, and that certainly all starts here. You know, we feel like we try to pick out the premium pieces that are available and deliver the best quality of wood that we can to our customers.
Should we see where it goes next?
Let's take a look.
What are these? These look like old railway sleepers. Or is that just bits of old pallet and rubbish?
Yeah, this was when they bring in all the large pieces. These are spacers, and these are just the cut-offs from other pieces. Yeah.
I was thinking that's not going to make a great guitar, that one. So it's good to know that that's just some off-cut stuff.
Here's a kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah. So explain that then. So you talked about the difference between air drying. So obviously, I suppose if you've got timber that's become very wet out in the, you know, after it's been cut or whatever, that just air dries for a while, does it?
Right.
The proper sort of drying process that's going to occur in there is really about removing all the moisture content or most of the moisture content. How does that?
That's pretty accurate, a lot of it, Lee. So we have a certain specification of water content that we want the wood to be at before we run it in production. We have a climate-controlled facility out here, both for temperature and humidity, that we maintain all year round. And part of that process, as it applies to wood drying, is we will check the moisture level of the wood. We'll use various measurement tools and hydrometers to check that. Depending on the moisture content is determined how long it's going to dry out for. So Rob and his team are going to monitor that right when the wood comes in, and then some of these hot rooms behind us here, you can see, right, so there are these large bays here.
I thought this went outside, but so you got plenty of space to dry
Right, and one of them's open, we can take a peek at as we walk down here. But essentially, when we know after time that wood, whether it's coming in at 12 or 13% water content, is going to take a certain amount of time to dry out.
So these are your relative humidity measurements, so you know what's in each of these rooms.
And then we're still on Fahrenheit here for our temperature, so you can see that particular room is at 87 degrees Fahrenheit and 28% relative humidity. But essentially what we're going to do, a piece of wood that has too much water in it is then prone to want to dry out later in its life, and you can experience movement. You've been in the industry a long time. You've seen that on necks and bodies on occasion. And a piece that's too dry is going to try to do the opposite and suck water up. So what we're doing in here is drying out below the threshold that we want to manufacture to. So we'll take this down below 4% in these rooms. We'll monitor it as it's in there. Rob has a good idea, knowing if a wet piece goes in, how long it's going to take before we dry it out. And then it's going to queue up on the wood shop floor for weeks before we touch it again.
Okay.
So what we'll do is
rehydrate it.
It does, and the reason we do that is to catch any pieces that are outside the extreme. So we'll go down below that threshold where we know we've dried everything out really well. Monitor that. It queues up on our floor really for about a month after our drying process before we start making guitar parts out of it. In some cases, for the neck blanks, it's even longer than that, which we'll talk about later. We date coat all the stuff, we can monitor it, and then it'll come back up. And usually in our conditions, the wood is going to stabilize between 7 and 9% moisture content in the conditions that we built in, and we found that that kind of creates stability in both the body and neck over the lifetime of the instrument. So when we build in those conditions and it's dried out properly, you have a straight neck and a body that's not going to move for the lifetime of the instrument. So we'll move through dry. We have a little bit of a different process for
okay,
our...
so that's one that's open, right? So they're just stored on those...
Yeah, this is one that's open. We're
just stored on those racks.
We've got
and then...
some spacers in here. There's a few neck blanks for long-term storage. They look like they might be Brazilian neck blanks and probably some
Brazilian stuff. We're not allowed that in the UK.
Oh, that's a shame.
Boo.
It's a beautiful wood. And over here you can see some stuff that's gone through the drying process, right? It's all queued up and ready to move out onto the wood shop floor. We've got a little internal coating system that they use for these different lots before it goes out into the manufacturing space.
Are you using one-piece mahogany for the bulk of the core line?
Yeah,
then?
so all of our backs are solid body mahogany guitars are all out of one piece. So you'll see some 5/4 and 6/4 and 8/4 pieces as we go through the facility here, and the entire body will be routed from one piece. For the swamp ash and the alder pieces, those are typically multi-piece, 2-piece and 3-piece bodies. We have a slightly different process.
There's a lot of guitars here, aren't there?
And it's a lot. And this is a few days worth of wood. You know,
is that all?
Yeah, well, you know, with our production numbers where they are currently, we're processing a lot of stuff and we're trying to meet customer demand in a reasonable time, so.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so there's a slightly different drying process for our fingerboards depending on the material. Those go into an actual oven, which you can see over here,
right,
Lee, and that's, they're taken to a much higher temperature. So it's not only to dry the piece of wood out, but it's also to help crystallize really any of the oil or resin that's in the fingerboard and kind of drive that to the surface of the piece before we process it. That helps later on with lamination. You don't want a real oily piece of wood that you're going to glue onto a neck. We feel it helps with the total properties and reduces, you know, that's shrinking later on.
That's an issue with any guitar, you know, and it's common, isn't it, that particularly on more mass-produced affordable guitars where you've got a fretboard made out of one wood and the neck made out of a different wood, they get glued together and then one of them just moves tiny bit more than the other one does.
That's right.
And then you've got problems, haven't you, with, you know, fret ends or cracking or
common
all kinds
stuff
of
that anyone has built guitar. You know, as time goes on, we try to weed out all those issues, and a lot of it has to do with the drying process that we use. We've got more wood queued over here. We're going to move out onto the wood shop floor here in a second. Here's some maple fingerboards that are queued up. They've probably already gone through the drying process, and some nice pieces of rock maple. And then you can leave behind you, there's a beautiful curly maple neck there you can kind of pick up right in front of you.
Wow, that weighs a bit.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, here's another really
one as well,
just a gorgeous one. Yeah, beautiful.
This is the new PRS neck carve.
Yeah, it's a more vintage, thicker
vintage
stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So we're going to move out onto the wood shop floor and take a look at the final part of our drying process for all of our wood, and then we'll start talking about manufacturing guitars.
Great. Let's go.
All right. What we had talked about after our drying process through the hot rooms, everything comes out here and is queued up in these positions. We have a lot of mahogany on this wall. There are a variety of different S2 and core tops behind us over here. And it all sits out here for several weeks. We have a very high-tech date coding system which uses a magic marker and masking tape, but it does tell the operator or the people building the guitars when this stuff came out and when it's going to be ready for production. And as we had mentioned earlier, it gives us, it lets the wood adjust and probably regain a little moisture based on the environment that it's in and that we're going to build it in. And we've said that kind of develops a stable part after this process. So you have several weeks worth of stuff queued up here. This stuff will get moved down after we run through all this lumber for production of guitar bodies. And the next stuff will get loaded in to finalize the drying process.
Are these all stored in some sort of, are these sort of butterfly cut and then laid out together? So that's a top, that's a top, that's a top? Or,
Yeah,
so
it is. So you have, even with the S2 tops, some of these may be slip matched. A lot of them are book matched. I know if we take a look at some of the core stuff down here, you can see that's exactly how they're all stacked up. So they've already kind of done a hash mark out here in rough cut for the best match. Of course, you guys are aware of.
Can you explain that? I fold this up how it would have been. So that would have been like that.
We can see, and you can see if I can get a good example. This is really. So here are the rings.
Yeah. Okay.
Right here, right.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine, this was in a incredibly big maple tree that was probably this large.
Yeah.
This billet is cut, and then that piece is ripped down the center of it, and then hence the book match as you open it up, so you get a mirror image of both the grain and the curl.
Even that, I must admit, I didn't realize that these were, when they're cut, I assume they were chunks like that you would do, but I guess you don't get the figuring or whatever if you horizontal cuts. You're taking vertical.
That's right,
cuts
and certainly from a strength standpoint, you want the grain running along the length of the wood as well.
There is another method, isn't there? That the split, or I forget.
Slip match, you'll see where some tops have been cut this way.
Yeah.
So you still have relatively similar figure and graining to where they would cut a longer piece and then move one piece down.
Right. Okay. So that's where you. So where you see a guitar where maybe the two pieces at the top look similar, but there's not necessarily a sense of like they're identical. You're saying that that's those two pieces probably rather than like that.
Yes, and there are some wonderful guitars that are made that way. We do a lot of book matches. We also do some slip matches as well. Tonally, I don't know that you'll see any difference. It's more of an aesthetic thing. Yeah. Excuse me, where you can really see that chevron or similar. You have basically a mirror image lineup. So
that's cool.
Over here, we've got some multi-piece solid body guitars that are glued up in process here. That's a piece of swamp ash right there. So that's a three-piece body to where you can see if you look at the end, Lee, you can see it becomes clear with the several different pieces.
It always amazes me how, like that.
I know, it looks like one piece.
It looks like one piece, doesn't it? And I find the same actually when you're looking at guitar bodies. It's often easier to see if there's multiple pieces by looking at the end of the guitar, like, that bit, than it is to look at it like that.
And it depends. Now this piece under it, very distinctive grain that shows through, and you can kind of see
it's a little bit more obvious, isn't it?
The separation. That particular piece, it looks very, very close to one piece.
And is it more normal to have to use 2- and 3-piece bodies on ash just because you can't buy the slabs big enough in the first place?
Right, so that's exactly what the deal is, and when we get alder in or swamp ash or ash, it's pretty rare to see pieces that are large enough that you could run at any decent production rate, hence the multi-piece bodies for those. Along with drying out all of our top and back wood as our final process out here, this area is our wood shop. So we have 5 or 6 major operations going on under this particular area here. And we get a shot down the aisle, you can kind of see. So we have our body construction, neck construction, we have some private stock wood shop operations, and we have our inlay cell where we do fingerboard, headstock veneers, and a variety of different truss rod covers, support parts, and all that happens in this area here. So on this side of the building, we have a lot of body construction, our milling centers for bodies and necks over here. And we have body sanding, neck sanding, and some private stock operations. So what I thought we could do is take a look at how we build a body. We've just looked at some of the drying processes for maple, mahogany, and ash and everything. We'll take a look at how we build a body, machine it, sand it, and then we can go through and take a look at the neck manufacturing process and how both those parts meet up. Okay.
Let's lead on.
All right.
This is Herman. He's a big fan of Andertons' YouTube channel, so obviously I had to give him a t-shirt. But so you've been here, what, nearly 30 years, 25 years, something?
26.
26 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And what do you do here?
I mostly do woodworking in the beginning stages, preparing necks for the CNC machine.
So you were presumably here then before they moved to this location?
No, I started here the year after they moved here, 97.
And how much, I mean, back then, you're presumably making like a fraction of the number of guitars you're making now. What have been like the biggest changes whilst you've been here?
Well, we only made core to begin with, so the Asian market guitars, the SEs, that was big. Then the S2 line. We also expanded this building, which more than doubled the whole place. It was sort of a small factory when I started, and it was just the other end of the building, which you'll see later.
What's your favorite guitar to build, or your favorite guitar to see being built?
I think the 594 series is my favorite series here.
Cool. Do you play?
A little bit. I'm not real good, but I've always liked guitars, and I've always bought them. So
that's cool, man. Well, look, it was good to see you. Enjoy the t-shirt. Thank you very much for doing such a great job of making the guitars.
So this is the first part of our body construction area here, and it would be where we glue all the tops together, all the three-piece solid body guitars together, and then eventually laminate those two pieces together in the case of a maple top and a mahogany back. And then eventually machine that into a guitar body. So these guys are going through a really a quality assurance step as well as part of our scheduling. So they have a list of orders of types of guitars to make for that day based on our manufacturing number. Then they're going to go through and hand select all the wood that best matches the customer order. So if they have information that pertains to the color of the guitar, what type of guitar it's going to be, and are able to pick out the best match for that guitar. Because as you can see, here's an example of a maple top where we looked at those two separate pieces. Yep. This has now obviously been milled down to a workable size. It's been glued together, and then the whole top's been milled down. It's ready to get a perimeter cut and then laminated to a piece of mahogany to make a mahogany body. So all this stuff.
At what point is it decided which model of guitar will this go on, or does it not really matter?
I was thinking we could talk to Ian for a second, because he does a lot of work with the scheduling and the matching up. And
so this is Ian, and I had a question for Rob, and he said best to ask you. But it's like, at what stage are you sort of allotting which guitars these tops might go on, or is it you choosing different tops for different models, or does it not really matter at this stage?
Well, we got a lot of different specifications for these wood here. So like all this wood here is for my bolt-on and S2 tops, which take a thinner top, right? They're all different colors that could work for a lot of these tops in the factory. So what I do is I get a schedule that I make every day, which tells me which guitars that we're due up in the schedule for next. And I'll go through the colors of all the guitars that we're making, and certain tops work well with certain colors, other tops don't work well with that color.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a wood librarian here, man. Going through all my wood, picking the stuff that makes the best.
So it's more the color that matches the figuring rather than necessarily the model. So what would you, I don't know. So when you've got a piece where maybe you've got reasonable amount of sort of a slightly wider flame top, what kind of color is likely to work on something like that? Or?
It depends on what you're trying to make. So like everything we try to make to the grade of the wood that we're picking it for. Some colors are curl poppers. You can put this on like a fire red or a whale blue, and if you stick that in there, the figure here is enhanced by some of the colors. So some colors work better with certain tops, other colors work better with other ones. So
I had no idea that would like you. I mean, that makes a lot of sense actually to match the top to the color. So again, it's sort of reassuring to know that PRS are going to that level of detail to even think, let's the right color for that top. That's very
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, we keep this big supermarket just so that way we have tops available that can make any color, no matter what color I have to make. I can go through this and I can find one that perfectly suits the color of the guitar I'm trying to make.
What's your favorite PRS color?
I have a vintage natural with a
Okay.
smoke burst. I'm
Yeah.
kind of an old school guy. I like it to look like it popped out of the tree like that with a little bit of eyeliner, you know? And yeah, so that's my personal preference. But if I had to pick a color, I'm a fan of a lot of our blue guitars,
Yeah.
especially as they age. I feel like it has a cool effect on them. So yeah, cobalt blue maybe. River
Good
blue
stuff.
if I had to pick between the two.
Well, it's good to meet you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
Excellent.
Take it easy. Cheers.
Pleasure.
We have some core tops over here. You just took you took a look at some S2 tops that had already been glued together. And Evan is using a handheld RF gluer right now to speed up the curing process on that book match glue joint. So he's got the two tops. They've already been edge joined. They've got a little hash mark on them with pencil where you can see it lines up the curl properly. He'll go through, apply the glue to the two pieces of wood. They'll go into these presses where you can see there's a series of pneumatic cylinders that will force the two pieces of wood together. And then he's going to go through and watch the amperage reading on his handheld device. There's a little needle readout on the device, and it'll glue these tops together. And what it allows you to do, there you go.
Look at that.
Right on. Thank you, Evan.
You can. Sorry, man. I was going to say
No, go ahead.
you can see you can see now that the core tops are about a quarter of an inch or an eighth of an inch thicker than the S2 tops, right? Give you a deeper carve in the top.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly, Lee. So you've got the heavy myelin carve on those guitars, and it requires a thicker piece of wood. And you know, back in the day, we would clamp all these up by hand, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, but it's pretty tough on your hands, and it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of space. This technology has been around, you know, probably since the 30s or 40s. You can actually see, which is kind of cool, there are some very large, I guess what you guys would call valves or tubes in there.
Oh wow!
Right?
Check that. Look at the valves in the machine.
There's some big ones in there, yeah.
I need to build a guitar amplifier using those valves.
Right.
They look incredible.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no idea. Is that just a really old machine, or is that just a machine that is still made using valves?
This one is, this machine's a few decades old. The technology behind it, as I said, has been around a long time.
That's
It's
amazing.
basically using radio waves or microwaves to excite the glue and dry it up. So you've got all these tops. We've just seen them getting glued together. We're then going to go and we have several location holes. We'll use some fixtures on here, line them up with the glue joint, so all our additional cuts are going to be, you know, either parallel or perpendicular to that kind of center line. Yep. We've done a rough tracing of the guitar. In this case, it's a single cut on here. This is an S2, where they've traced the outline of the guitar. They'll rough cut that out on the bandsaw. It is then going to get glue applied to both the back and the top.
Yep.
It'll get glued together, and it's going to go into one of these presses. Again, there may be one original one over here from when I started, but you can see a series of bodies in here that are all going to glue in, dry in these presses under a significant amount of force.
Yep.
It's hydraulic cylinders with a pneumatic backup system. We'll squeeze all that glue out, get a nice tight glue joint around the guitar. They're going to stay in here for 6 to 8 hours before they're popped out, and then they move on to the machining operation.
I know these have been cut now, but I'm guessing
Perfect.
that's
Yeah, right.
what you end up with, right?
Here you go. So now the only additional step here from our press is we've gone back to the bandsaw and just trimmed this a little bit closer. As you can see, some of these location holes in here are going to correspond to some location pins on a variety of different body fixtures. We'll go through and do a series of back cuts to the guitar where we'll do the final perimeter, electronics cavity, in some cases trim cavity, belly carve, round over, and then we'll go to a series of top cuts where we cut pickup cavities, potentiometer holes.
Presumably the locator points, where by the time the arch top's gone in, they'll all just disappear, basically.
Oh, you got it. Gets milled away. So that'll be gone in the carve. This is in the neck joint.
Right.
And this gets carved away.
I love watching CNC machines. almost
They
feel
are,
it's like a
they're
sort of
mesmerizing, aren't they?
yeah, it's almost a bit like a almost not like a ASMR type thing, but I find it just really, really relaxing just to watch. Did you right at the beginning of the whole PRS thing? Were you using any sort of hand jigs or anything like that, or has it always been a CNC sort of process?
No. So when I started here in '92, so we had a duplicarver set up for the major carving operations, and it was, if you can kind of conceptualize like a giant key cutter, where you had a master blank of a particular body carve with a large feeler assembly. The whole thing was mounted to another routing machine. You manually change the tool, and you would basically trace over the blank and carve away your other your body, and it was kind of a manual process. And then all the, like what we're watching right now, we would do on the drill press, right? So we would take
one at a time.
One at a time. Sometimes multiple stages set up, and there were shapers that we would use to cut the perimeter of the body. And you know, the CNC machines have brought a, you can repeat the same thing at a high accuracy. It's a lot easier to load a guitar body in and out of one of these machines than it is to run a pin router or a shaper for 8 hours a day, or a duplicarver. But again, it's, you know, it's still heavily dependent on the people you have who are working here. It's just the same thing with good ingredients. We have a workforce here and we're very fortunate about, there's a lot of people here who play guitar. There's also people here who don't play guitar, but all of them, they really care about what they're doing. And hopefully our customers kind of see that in the final product. And as you walk around through the facility, you see there's some automation. There's still a tremendous amount of handwork that goes into producing one of these as well. So here are some hollow bodies that have gone through a slightly different process.
Oh, look at that!
Right, so we had a back glued up to a top that went into a machine face down. So, and then we've routed out this, so it's carved on the inside as well.
And is this because that is smooth for a CNC finish. Is that, has that been hand sanded as well, or is that just straight out the machine?
They will come in here, and if there are any heavy machining marks, they'll hand sand that. So you don't want a lot of fur or other stuff that's going to trap glue or dust or anything else. So yeah, that's a little smoother than off the machine, but we'll take a look at the resolution off some other carved parts. So this whole area here is really all of our body milling operations, and we have a variety of different machines and fixtures for different types of guitars. Here we have the single cut running, right? Looks like maybe a 594 single cut in there. As we go a little bit further down here, you'll see a variety of different fixtures that accommodate different body shapes. Here's some of the different fixtures over here, and depending on what body they're going to run. But essentially you have a series of these location holes that'll orient the body in the correct position, and then the majority of the fixturing, the way these bodies are held down, you can actually see because there's one open space. So you have a series of gaskets and channels in here, and then these other lines are vacuum lines. So they'll fixture, this one catches the perimeter of the guitar, they'll put it in there, open up the vacuum line, it's a centralized vacuum pump, it'll suck the part down to the fixture and holds it well enough that you can go through and do all the machining operations.
I know this sounds like stating the most obvious thing ever, but the fact that just seeing a guitar and knowing that in a few weeks' time, someone's going to own that guitar and going to be playing it and making cool music on it, I don't know, it's just really, it's just amazing. I know it sounds stupid because I guess that's everything is like that, but it's still cool.
Yeah, I don't think it's stupid. I can tell you, as you know, from working with Paul, I did a few of the jobs back here that we took a look at, and I would go up to visit family in like the Boston area. I could go into a music store. Our production numbers were much smaller, and I could see a guitar, and I was like, I remember gluing that one up. It's actually really kind of a neat thing. Yeah, it is.
That is really cool, man.
So we were talking about the resolution on the inside of that hollow body. Here's a CE, and this is off the machine, so you can kind of get an idea that what that surface looks like.
Yeah.
As we were talking about earlier with our dupla carver, there were much more pronounced tool lines. This is pretty close, really, to our finished.
It's funny how
shape.
flame maple, and I don't know if it's the flaming exacerbates this. It's funny how much rougher maple feels out the CNC machine than mahogany feels.
Yeah.
Like, mahogany feels so smooth already, and yet that still feels like it needs an element of fine grit kind of
Yeah,
sanding.
and it's a harder wood than the mahogany, and probably the grain has something to do with that as well, but it's pretty close to
It
the
already
finished
looks
stuff.
really beautiful. Doesn't
It really does.
Just like, that doesn't feel like it needs a lot of extra treatment or finishing to make that into a beautiful guitar.
Right, which is kind of, it's the impression you get at this stage until you really start to take a closer look at where you can see some of those machining marks and hard transitions between here. And even in here where you can see we had a fly mill come across this piece where you can kind of see how it refracts the light differently on these pieces from the direction the tool was turning. So all that has to get sanded out, right? You can feel in here, we've got some rough area. All these hard line transitions, of course any rough left in the wood is then going to be hand sanded.
There is no sander as such on a CNC machine, is it? It's all blades and drill bits, isn't it?
Yeah, you got footage of the machines, a lot of it are metalworking tools in there, but there's a lot of ball mills, end mills, drills, fly cutters, various different types of tools used in machining plastic, wood, and metal. And we are currently not doing any sanding operations in one of these machines. It's milling only.
Let's move on. Where's next?
So we can take a look at we have some secondary operations after our CNC and milling area that we do over here by hand, which are some drilling operations. So in order to really connect all these parts, some of our guitars have pre-routed channels that we do over here. Other ones we drill through to connect the pickup cavities to the electronic cavities. And then of course there's strap button holes, jack holes, and we do all those operations at this drilling center over here.
So basically I'm just drilling all the holes for the electronics, jack hole, strap holes.
I like how you've sort of custom made some.
Oh yeah, we have a whole bunch of different.
So you put that, and then that guides the hole, and you obviously know which length drill bit you need to use. Holy moly! What is that one used for?
That's for this one.
Wow! How many different holes have you got to drill on an average body?
So I'll show you here. I start here.
Yeah.
These are the screw holes. So there's 4 of those. And then this is just a pilot hole for the jack hole.
Yeah.
That's for this big
one.
And then you have a strap hole here and a strap hole here, and then your 2 pickups.
Cool. That's awesome.
But it varies from guitar to guitar.
And is this process something that's impossible to do on a CNC machine because of the angle that you have to drill? It all has to be done by hand.
You need there are machines out there that will do that. You need an additional 4th and 5th axis machine for some of those holes because you have to actuate the body to go, we're moving in X, Y, and Z. You have to get another axis to drill through there. So he's got a chart that represent all the different guitars and then what fixtures correlate to them behind here. So you have to keep your head on a swivel as all the different models come in here. They're all marked, but you do a great job over here.
Thanks, man. It's good to meet you.
You too.
Cheers, man.
So this is our body sand area over here. We took a look at all those machining operations, and we talked about the next step in the operation, which is to sand the entire body. And that happens over here. So you have a variety of different people over here that work on teams and sand certain aspects of the guitar, moves on to the next area. So these people may be working on the sides and neck joint area of the guitar. It'll move on and get the back and top sanded. We have a few people that can sand a complete guitar as well, but they break it up and move people around to kind of break up the monotony a little bit.
This feels like a very, very human, labor intensive. It really, other than that's about as automated as this area gets, right?
That's right, Lee. And I was going to talk about, there's really only a couple different tools. We have some floor-mounted spindle sanders with like a pneumatic diaphragm to sand certain areas. You have one of these electric dual-action orbital sanders, and then as you can see, there's a lot of handwork that goes into it. This is actually where I started off when I started working here in '92 and sanding guitar bodies.
How long roughly do you think per guitar are you expecting somebody here to spend sanding it?
Sanding one guitar? Yeah. It depends on the model. I would say if you're looking at a core guitar with a more intricate carve and say maybe a more difficult top, like a quilted top, that is a little more prone to having rough, that could be 45 minutes to an hour or so. A S2 or a CE is down from there depending on the materials. So
you're talking like between a dozen and maybe 20 guitars a day maximum for a single operator to just be able to sand.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, if you were doing all fours and it's 45 minutes a day and you're in an 8 or 9 hour shift, you're talking a little over a handful of guitars per person a day. Yeah, but there, as you can see, we've got the overhead factory lighting, you know, full spectrum fluorescent lights, a series of dock lights. Those are all 100-watt lights, and a big part of what they're doing in here, the general shape of the guitar is there. They want to remove all the machining marks and blend all the lines properly, and it's a big real-time QC inspection as they're going through. Well, they'll start off with a more aggressive grit and then progress to a finer grit as they get through the guitar.
This is so smooth! Feel that! I mean, I don't know if this is a saying that translates around the world, but in the UK, we would say that's as smooth as a baby's bottom. Maybe that's not appropriate anymore, I don't know.
I think that's pretty universal.
Is it?
Yeah.
Where to next?
Okay, so we've taken a look at, we've really gone all the way up through body construction and sand, and what we're going to do is take a look at our neck manufacturing process. We took a look at a curly maple neck plank out in the rough cut area earlier. And what you'll see out here, I think this is a roasted piece right here. But we talked about throughput of guitars. Essentially, that whole process that we looked at with bodies from build, machining, and sanding, depending on how much we have in each queue, represents 4 or 5 days or so after the drying process. On the neck side of things, when we get our neck planks in and they've gone through their drying process, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to sit out in this area. They'll get a rough cut to where you can kind of see the shape of the guitar, right? Here's our headstock and here's our heel. Our drying process is a lot longer on the necks. So where we took a look at 3 or 4 days of body manufacturing, the neck is going to stay out on this shelf for 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks before we touch it again. And the whole purpose of all these dry times is to let any micro movements, stress relief that may happen at a given time, and let that stuff happen naturally before then we go to machine it and mill it. They're going to dry out here for 2 weeks, and then the neck manufacturing process, the throughput on that is 17 or 18 days. So you're really looking at over a month just back in the wood shop to produce a neck. And the whole thought process, as we've kind of developed over the years, is to have a final, very stable neck that is not prone to movement or environmental conditions. And we found, and you'll see when we go back here, you'll have lots of different necks queued up at different stages. And there are mandatory dry times in between these machining stages. And it's all in an effort to let any minute movement happen as you remove wood, then re-level that surface before the next production process so that you end up with a very stable piece of wood that's not prone to movement.
It's a lot heavier, isn't it, maple than mahogany?
Right, it is.
I think that surprised me.
And then here's a solid East Indian one. Those are maybe more
I think the mahogany's the lightest. Oh no, maybe they're similar.
The mahogany one's definitely the lightest,
Wow.
Some of these can be really
What do you put solid rosewood necks on?
So we've done limited runs with solid rosewood necks. A lot of the Wood Library guitars,
Right, yes.
they're ordered,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
I own a couple guitars with East Indian rosewood
So
necks. So it's
beautiful.
kind of cool. They are beautiful, right?
Where was this in here?
Yeah, probably.
Hey! How's it going? That's good. We're having a good time.
Are you?
No, honestly.
We're going to dinner tonight.
Yes, that's going to be good as well.
Okay, so as we were talking about before, big part of our manufacturing necks is the dry time and the ultimate stability of the neck. So this is kind of the first part of the process on the core necks. On our S2 necks, they start off much closer.
I thought these would be fretboards or something, but
Right,
these are necks.
So this is an S2 neck plank that's gone through just the initial milling stuff, and as you can see, the thickness on here, it's much closer. This starts off as a piece of 5/4. It's much closer to the finished thickness of the neck, and it is less wasteful.
And then the headstock is spliced on, is it?
It is. We have a scarf joint. We have a little storyboard that we'll take a look at. But both the heel thickness and the headstock thickness are made from this piece of wood, where you'll do a scarf joint in here. So this is kind of part of our initial drying rack process.
That's quite, I must admit, I think some of the differences between S2 and core are more obvious, you know, the neck carves and the colors and things like that. But I hadn't realized the neck was one piece on core and then made of, so it's one piece of wood, but then cut into to be the headstock and the heel joint separately.
Right, yep, exactly. Here's a little, these have been coated from one of those middle pieces we were talking about. They will be used as the ears for later on here. So it's got a variety of different neck planks and materials drying. Cool.
Is this the storyboard you were talking about?
This is the storyboard. So we'll talk about a story, right?
I see, I think I've sort of worked it out now. So it starts looking like this, finishes looking like this, and these are the processes. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of neat, but as you can see what we were talking about earlier, right? You know, this is a rough neck plank.
Yeah. Looks like a fence post, doesn't it?
Doesn't it though? Yeah, and this is a solid piece of mahogany, our display model here, right? But as you can see, when we look at that, when we go from our rough piece of lumber then to a finished part, right? You're removing a significant amount of wood off there, and anytime you do that, and it's you know, it's not an equal portion, where obviously we're taking more off of the back of this to compensate for the headstock and the heel, you will see some movement. So it's very important that you have dry times and cue times between all these various operations. We looked at that rack of rough cut pieces, Lee, so we go to this stage. The next thing we'll do is a rough perimeter cut. We'll also cut the channel for the truss rod insert, the retaining nuts for the truss rod. So you can kind of see here on this model, this piece looks like it cracked a little bit. But here's our dual action truss rod in here, where there's this one's so tight. There we go, get it out here. So essentially, you've got a standard thread nut and a reverse threaded nut. So as I tighten or loosen this rod, it's going to try to bring these two nuts closer together or further apart. And then since the channel is offset in here in the neck, it acts like a stay on a sail. Will manipulate the neck for forward bow or relief or back bow, depending on your string tension or any minute changes you might have in the neck, depending on string gauge and everything else. But it gives the player the opportunity to make adjustments to how much relief they may like. Some people like a little more relief on a neck.
When we were at Gibson, I was surprised because they fret the fretboard before they put the fretboard on the neck. And I don't have a sense of one way being better than the other, but I'd always assumed that you would put the fretboard on the guitar and then fret it. But I assume is that the sort of the final part of your neck production here is, I guess you're putting the veneer on the headstock and then fretting it, right?
Right, so on our core necks, the neck will get, the fingerboard gets glued on there before the neck is carved.
Right.
Then we'll carve it. We'll do a machine leveling, but the most crucial part on these, there's a hand leveling operation that we're going to take a look at, to where we want the ability to finalize the leveling of this fingerboard surface before we fret it and put it on a neck. However, on the S2 side of things, we're doing something similar to what you described, where we radius the fingerboard,
right,
inlay and fret the fingerboard separately, and that whole unit
right,
gets glued onto a neck. So,
and is there a sense of, I assume the S2 is the faster process, is there? Is there a sense that any reason why fretting it at the end and putting the radius on at the end is better, or I don't...
There's a couple schools of thoughts on that. That I would say this process on the S2s is a little more efficient in the fact that you have with a limited amount of SKUs, you have all these fretted inlay units for particular necks, and the time required to get an S2 neck through the factory is less than a core neck.
Yeah.
The core stuff kind of goes back to a process that we've always done, which is being able to do a final leveling of the fingerboard to get the neck as straight as possible before you fret it. Because obviously once the fingerboard is fretted, you can't manipulate the surface of the fingerboard, and any leveling you're going to be doing is then in the frets.
In the frets, not the board, yeah.
Right, so with this starting off as our original process, Paul was always trying to get a flat as neck as possible, and the way we achieved that was having a carved neck with the fingerboard on it and doing a final hand leveling process, which we still do today on core necks. And the S2 one, you know, it is a little more efficient and takes less time to produce, and it's a different price point guitar. Yeah. So we skipped over some of the stages, but essentially you can kind of see they're represented here. This is not every stage, but it gives you an idea of the major machining stages. As we had talked about earlier on the S2 side of things, you start off with a blank that's much closer to a finalized size. You then go to where we utilize the same piece of wood, where we've done a scarf joint on this, to where then we can achieve the headstock angle.
Oh, you know what?
As well as the heel piece.
This is my inexperience as a wood, but I obviously appreciated that you would cut it, but then I had no idea that all you did was flip it that way around, and that's the angle, like, already done. I guess I thought it would have like another cut or something, but that's really clever.
Yeah. Well,
simple.
And you know, truth be told, we do the initial cut on a saw. There are a variety of different milling operations to those surfaces so that to get a very precise, good glue joint. But this has been used on classical, you know, acoustic guitars for 100 years. So pretty standard process.
Yeah, I mean, once it's glued in, yet again, we keep talking about this. It's really hard to see. Is that been spliced on? Or
it has. So
I can't even see where the joint is.
The machining marks make it a little bit tough. If you look at this closely, you'll see where the grain structure opposes it. You certainly can see it on that surface there. It's a very strong, as you can see from those two pieces, it's a significant glue joint, right? It travels down this whole part, so it's a very large glue joint. We do a lot of, we've done a lot of stress testing and strength testing in the beginning of this project many years ago to ensure that the glue joint is stronger than a solid piece of wood itself right there. And
it's still really hard to see the joint.
Yeah, it is. Well, we're going to look at some finished pieces, but you can see it in here, right?
I mean, and like you say, it's a big surface, so I'd imagine actually the strength here of the glue is probably stronger than the wood. Anyway,
it is. It's such a large surface, Lee, so it's a very strong deal. We've got we actually have a press back there where we do a quality assurance test on a series of necks
I think
to
I
make
vaguely remember.
to make sure that they can withstand
Yeah,
way more force than the.
I think I
string
vaguely
tension.
remember in really early video land, it may have even been before YouTube, when, you know, of Paul getting a maple neck, standing it up against the chair, and standing on it like that. I'm thinking that might even be 20 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, you see the various components. We'll take a look at some of the neck milling operations, and maybe we can catch Veronica back there. She manages that area and can walk us through some of the processes.
When you see your highly figured flame maple necks that you get on some PRS guitars, I guess that's kind of what it starts off looking like, right?
Yeah, and
some amazing ones in there.
Interesting deal. We were talking about utilizing those pieces. So we've got, you know, this has a coating system on it. When they cut that piece out, and even though it won't get the ears for 7 or 8 days later, they match those particular pieces up so that, you know, you have really the same piece of wood. It's going to take stain the same way and finish the same way, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want it sticking out, and they're matched up pretty well.
This is Veronica.
I'm Veronica Kirkpatrick. I am 23 years experience on this place.
Mad.
It's
That's
been
cool.
on for a while.
So you started when you were about 4 then, yeah?
If you like to say that, yes. I had just managed to get my diaper off and I was good to go.
So what's your role here?
I'm the woodshop construction manager.
Cool.
So,
Over the whole wood shop or just in the neck area? Or?
neck and body, CNC. I did like the construction, the beginning of it.
Okay.
Up until CNC, and then after that it goes over to sanding.
So what is your main role in making sure the CNC machines are working properly, or is it training the other staff here how to use them, or?
No, I have other people do that for me.
Okay.
So I started out as a CNC on the body team, and then I went on to the next team, and then I've been all over the place. So really, I'm just telling other people what to do.
And it's
that they follow the
presumably your
process and make sure that they.
Yeah. So the final quality of what comes out of the wood shop is ultimately down to you, is it?
That goes into the next. Into the sanding area. Yeah.
So I see. After it comes out of here, before it goes to sanding, it's down to you to make sure. It's amazing. And 22 years. I guess it's changed quite a lot over that time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's a completely different ball
mad.
game. Except for quality, it's gotten better.
Yeah.
And it just keeps on getting better.
Do you play as well?
No.
No? So you're one of
No.
the few staff here that doesn't play, but do you have a background in woodworking anyway, or were you doing sort of furniture stuff? So everything you'll just learn from here?
I was a CNC operator at Saab transmission back in Sweden and back in the 80s, mid-80s, late 80s.
Saab, what a great car brand that
Yes.
was. Such a shame.
It is.
What's your favorite Saab?
Oh, I didn't like riding the Saabs. I felt like the pedals was in the wrong area. I drive a Volvo though.
Oh, you're still flying the flag for Sweden. Oh, it's great to meet you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, see you in a bit. This is James. Been here 31 years, right?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes.
It's amazing.
It's a lifetime.
A lot of the staff.
It was a
have been here
lifetime ago that I got
long.
hired.
And you're going to take us through. We were looking at some of the scarf joints on the guitar.
And what I'm
necks.
milling right here is the headstock part of the scarf blank itself.
Yeah.
That's the scarf blank itself. Now those are maple, this is mahogany. I'm just going to use this as an example. Those headstocks get mated to that. And Glenn, on the other side of the wall down there, he will use RF glue and dowel pins and laminate these two pieces together to make the actual neck for an S2.
So you're pinning it as well as gluing it, are you?
Well, this is just identifying what size this is, what model I'm running. That's all that is. It's grease pencil. And when this was cut, it was one piece of wood. So they're numbered also. So it's a perfect match. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you look, that's size 4 and it's number 1. This number 1 blank matches perfectly with my number 1 headstock. Yep. Which I'm milling currently.
This is Dave. This is Steve.
Hey guys.
We're still in the neck kind of area here. So what? And you're doing some training with Steve, right? So what are you trying to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, right now what we're doing is these parts have to go on the jig, and in order to fit them on, we've got to basically put location holes in the jig. And so All he is right now, he's using a line on the headstock to locate where he needs to be depending on the part. We have to move it forward or backwards, and that allows it, once we put it on the jig, to orient right so it cuts into the tent.
And on the jig here, what are you doing? Cutting the headstock out?
Exactly, yeah. So we're cutting the headstock out. We're going to put locations into the fingerboard so we can locate the fingerboard later when it gets put on. Basically, this process, it takes about 12 minutes to run all 4 at a time. That's about it. It's a pretty simple.
Do you play as well?
I do play.
So, and what's your favorite Paul Reed Smith guitar then?
I do. I have a Special 22 semi-hollow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I just got it for my 2-year employee guitar.
Oh, cool. So they do that, do they? When you've been here a certain number of years,
Absolutely,
you get...
yeah, different year increments, they basically pay for the cost of the parts. So 2 years, 7 years, 15, then every 5 after that. So I got my 2-year guitar, James, who you guys just talked to.
Yeah.
He's getting his 30-year guitar.
What do you get for 30 years? Anything you want, right?
He's getting a Floyd Rose 24 with a Koa top, some Babinga back. The fingerboard's going to be scalloped with like a Koa fingerboard. It's got gold frets. He's putting a spike on the toggle switch.
Are you going to make it to 30 years, do you think, here?
I hope so. It's been
so?
pretty great. I came here during COVID because I needed a job, and I started sanding 2 days in. They said, hey, why don't you go over and try CNC? And so I've been over here ever since.
It's good to meet you, man.
Absolutely, good to meet you, Lee.
Thanks a lot. Take it easy.
So you can see we talked about earlier, we've got all these necks at these various machining stages, and they all have a mandatory queue time. They have to sit, you know, in some cases for 2 days, and it's all about building that stability into the neck. Super glad you get an opportunity to talk to some of the people
I love it.
who work here and build these wonderful guitars. And I hope you sense they care about what they're doing. You know?
I think it's been a theme for most places where I've seen guitars being made. I kind of feel like as much as there's a lot of machinery in a guitar factory, there's also an incredible amount of human input as well. And everybody seems to, there's some joy of just being involved in making a musical instrument. It's nice to see. You rarely see like a miserable guitar manufacturing employee.
We've gone through all this neck manufacturing stuff. We're going to take a look at neck and body assembly, and I want to look at a few more neck operations with some fretting and hand leveling stuff, okay? So Lee, this is Dan. Dan manages the neck team area and all the neck manufacturing stuff.
So yeah, take us through then. What's that? I mean, there's a lot of necks here. I've never seen so many guitar necks. But what are you trying to strive for? What, you know, when you're obviously managing all the people and keeping an eye on their work, what are some of the most important parts of the neck manufacturing process?
So this area is where like all the hand details start. So we're coming off the machine. This area right here is where we're leveling the fretboard. So all the core necks, Silver Skies, a Miles Kennedy, and the NF53 are leveled by hand. So they have a straight edge over here. So we'll adjust the truss rod till it's dead flat. They have a light here. They'll make sure that, you know, there's a little bit of light, like a few thousandths of light in there right now, right?
Yeah.
They'll level that down with this radius jig until it's dead flat, and that's how you achieve the low action and no buzzing. So
I was
the foundation of all your fretwork starts here.
I was asking Rob earlier, saying it's interesting that you leave the fretting on the core necks until like almost the neck's completely finished, and the fretting is the last bit you do. Whereas on S2, obviously the boards are pre-fretted. But I mean, that's so there's a very slight radius in this, right? And or is that completely flat?
This is dead flat.
That's dead flat, is it? Okay, that's an optical illusion. So that's how you're able to put it on like that. And as you say, if you see any, I get it right. So if you see any light underneath there, you know that you've got to try and carve that out.
Yep.
Oh, and I've just realised. So this
is radius. You got to maintain the radius.
That block there's got the. So have you got different? Do you do different radiuses depending on the neck?
Yeah, so you have a 7 1/4 for the Silver Sky and a 10 for the.
And that's just a question of when that's in. You're basically just doing that movement.
Set it in there, go back and forth.
Yeah.
Check it again. Fill any inlays that opens up as we go. And after they get that level, they also level the headstock so that it gets ready for the veneer. And after that, they'll fret it. So we have a fret press.
This looks like a really old piece of machinery.
This has been here before my time. So
these are always my favorite things in guitar
Yeah.
factories. Like, you know, you just think, and how many different fret presses are there in the production line?
We have 3 in the wood shop.
So you've got, like, if you own a PRS guitar, you've got like a 1 in 3 chance of having the same fret press do your guitar as did John Mayer's guitar or something like that.
yeah.
Well, that is, I mean, so that neck goes in here, somebody puts the frets in by hand, do they, and then that just pulls down to clamp it?
Yeah, so we have a caul, we put the caul in there, and then we put the neck in, and we glue every fret in, so we put the glue in the slot first, and then you would press the fret in, just line it up.
And are you clipping the ends off and dressing it here as well, or is that a separate?
After they press all of them in, we have a pneumatic cutter over here, we flip them flush, and then they use the big floor sander there to put the bevel on the side.
Oh, so that's done by a, I see, so that's a sander, is it? Just that puts the, that dresses the edges of the frets?
Yeah, very.
Is that like a really, yeah, that's some.
So they'll hold the neck at an angle there and cut the angle on the fret, and then we'll fine tune it at the bench when we sand it to a specific angle.
What else have we got going on in this area? Do you put the inlays in here, or is that done on the fretboards?
Inlays done, and they have a separate cell for that, so that's pre-assembled. Down here is where we do the veneer. We have a variety of veneers. So we'll scan.
Oh, yeah, isn't that? Look at these, beautiful. What's that? Is that a Santana veneer or?
Yeah, figured maple. Some Brazilian. Got nice Brazilian stuff in here.
This is all Brazilian rosewood, is it?
Yes. A lot of variety in Brazilian. And then they'll sit here after they're done here. They'll get unclamped and then they're ready to sand. And then they'll come down.
So when you say that, what? Oh yeah, you're right. So you can now feel that this has just had the frets cut, right? Because you can still feel they're pretty rough. So you're saying these haven't gone through that sander yet.
They did, yeah. So like they put the angle on the fret with that sander.
Oh, so okay. So how do you then sort of do that final bit where you get rid of the edges on the frets?
So we have one of the first things they'll do is take a file and they'll file down the edge.
Right.
And then
so it's a 2-stage. So the belt sander bit is like a rough sand, is it, just to get the edge on, and then
they get the angle pretty close.
Right, I see.
And then we'll finish dialing it in by hand.
Yeah.
To make sure that we get a specific angle on there.
And this, I suppose, is, you know, by the time you're at this stage, you begin to realise the importance of all of the drying and the curing of stuff of the wood, because once you're here, you don't want any movement at all.
Right.
Because of course the one part of a guitar that can never move is the fret. So if you get any kind of shrinkage and stuff on the wood, then that's what makes it feel like the frets are popping out.
Where we
cool.
give the neck its true.
It's a Silver Sky neck.
Feel. Yeah. So we sand all the machine marks off of there, get all the tear out, and round all the edges so they're nice and smooth. Make the neck feel comfortable.
Where do they go after this? What's the next process? It goes to assembly, does it, where it's joined to the body, or are there more processes?
All the bolt-on necks would go to finish. All the set necks would go over and meet the body in the body king.
So the bolt-on necks can be lacquered before they're assembled, right?
Yep.
And then but obviously a set neck needs to go into the body before it's painted and sprayed.
Yep.
Cool, man. Well, it's good to meet you. Thank you very much for taking us through that.
Thank you.
I guess we'll go on and see the next process. This is probably the bit that I've been most looking forward to. We're going to meet Steve now, who does the inlays for Paul Reed Smith, and I guess probably what makes Paul Reed Smith so identifiable and so famous is its bird inlays, but also some of the guitars that we've been buying in more recently through private stock, where we've got some crazy inlays. And I remember being at the NAMM show and seeing Dragon guitars, and it's like, this is next level craftsmanship. So Steve, I mean, tell us what you do at your bench and how long you've been here, and stuff. What's like the craziest inlay stuff that you've got going on?
Well, I've been here for just under 20 years now.
That's mad.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I've only been doing this for about a decade now. When we started out, the idea was that we were going to have a turnover that was a lot quicker, so we brought it in-house. When we started, we had a company called Olson who did all of our inlay work, and we just shipped them in. But it just made more sense to do it here on our own. So as far as the variety of what we have, welcome to the aviary. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, everyone is different. Everything is a unique.
Oh my word!
So we have two main kinds. We have the old original birds.
Where are these made, though?
Here.
So you're cutting these?
Literally right now.
Wow! I mean, do you know roughly how many different shapes of inlay you might have in that cupboard there?
In that cupboard, well, there's really only two main ones: the jaybirds and the old birds. These are actually old birds, the original birds that came like back in the 80s. Yeah, the original geometry that he came up with. We get about 12 sets per sheet. This is Ab Select, the kind of shell that we use. Yeah, the program takes roughly under an hour to do, but
and you're going to end up with a few hundred different inlays within an hour. So I suppose it's like much more efficient than trying to do that by hand.
This over here is the veneers for the headstocks with his signature on them. We cut this out with our CO2 laser. Yeah, each piece gets fitted in individually.
You're putting these in by hand, are you?
Yeah, we have to.
And how many different pieces make up the Paul Reed Smith?
Just the 5.
5 different, but even so.
But still.
And then that's just sanded down to make it flush?
Sand it down to 150, we flip it over, sand it down to 35 thou, and it falls out, and then you get this, one of those guys. So that's basically the whole thing.
It's so nice. I mean, it's like, I always think like the inlay on a, whenever a guitar brand does inlay on the headstock or on the fretboard or whatever, it's such a beautiful aesthetic of, it really finishes the guitar.
We put a lot of time into it. And
I guess I don't think anybody does inlays like you guys do. It's just
not that
crazy.
I'm aware of, honestly. I mean, yeah. So this is the standard core stuff, and then we've got private stock stuff.
So I don't know if you heard that, but this is the private stock inlay.
Yeah.
So I guess
got eagles.
And, when you see all the bats and the skylines and all that kind of stuff.
Not that elaborate, honestly, with this stuff. We try to keep, because there are a lot of standards that we do in private stock too. I mean, it's not as elaborate as dragons or something like that, but it's still pretty intricate.
Did you work on there's a dragon in the foyer when you first come in? Was that sort of before you started here? Or?
I'm not sure which year that was. If it was, I never actually got to work on any of the dragons. We send those out and bring them in. But I did work on the double necks way back in the day.
Yes, I've seen a double neck. I mean, there must be, I don't know, what is there? 2,000-3,000 different pieces of inlay on one of those guitars?
It's silly. There's too many is what it is.
What's number 6?
So we don't do just acrylic for the signatures. We also do power, ab, mop.
So these are all the parts of Paul's signature, right?
Correct.
So, but with different materials. Look how tiny, this is what these guys are working with. You've got to be so careful with this stuff to not break it, I guess, as you're trying to either cut it or put it in the inlay. I think that's mad. I feel like I should, could you program one to make my signature out of an inlay? Just, and then I'll just stick it on things just because.
This in there. Hell yeah.
When Paul Miles is doing, the inlay designs for private stock stuff, are you involved at the design stage to sort of see what's possible and what's not, or are you more you just get given like, go and make this?
Yeah, basically. When it comes to the design stuff, it's he and the art department. They'll all over it for.
And what's the most challenging piece of inlay you've ever had to do?
Oh Lord, when we did the John Mayers. They were actually engraved.
Right.
So we did a limited run for him. They were the Super Eagles. And the eagle itself was actually engraved with a bit that was 007. It was so tiny. They took hours upon hours to actually engrave, and then we went over them and actually, it got to the point where we were scrapping some of them out because we sanded too much. We were taking too much off it. So it was definitely a thing, but patience, that's what it's all about here.
It's great. Well, look, you're a proper artist, man. I love seeing this stuff. It's very cool. Anyway, So there you go. When you're playing your Corey Smith guitar, admiring the inlays, now you know who put them in.
This is Kyler. He works over in our neck and body assembly area. And Kyler, how long have you been with PRS now?
I've been working here for a little over 2 years.
Okay.
Coming up on 2.5.
Okay. And Kyler is certainly one of our more experienced at this point neck and body assembly guys. He does a very crucial part of the operations over here, which is setting the neck angle for a lot of the guitars. Okay, so that's...
So is this predominantly for the set neck core stuff, or are you doing bolt-on as well?
This is only our S2 and our core line. Our bolt-ons are more dealt with later on down the line.
Cool. Well, so yeah, so I would love to say I'm always fascinated about the sort of set neck, because it requires a level of precision that sort of bolt-on neck doesn't need.
Sure.
So yeah, talk this. I mean, tons of people doing this job here as well. But show us. Have you got like a neck and a body that are waiting to go together, and you could show us the sort of the process?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can take a look at one. So the neck is probably about 5 thousandths bigger. Now some of these parts have already been sanded, but we're going to generally show you through the steps.
Hopefully we'll get one teed up here again.
And if not, this is good. You can just kind of walk us through, Kyle. So what do
you're
you initially
saying this has already been sanded down, so out of the machine it would be very slightly too big for the pocket, right?
That's right.
Correct. That is correct. This is the finished product. This is what it looks like after it's done through this step here. But I mean, what I would initially do to start this process, I would take the neck and I would start at an angle and bring it in, and usually it would sit about there. That's usually how it would look when I start off this process. So that usually tells me how many swipes that I need to do on each side. And that just kind of comes with time.
Yeah.
So I would start off on the block, keeping the pressure centered and making sure that this stays flat, because any movement to either side could automatically just ruin the whole setup. So I would, since this is already done, I'm not going to do it, but you would go up and making sure that the
and you're talking like 1 or 2 passes and then see if it's a better fit by then, and keep doing that until you get the snuggest fit possible.
That is correct, yes.
Are you compensating for the glue that goes in as well? So you're just making it slightly, because I guess you're gonna glue this as well.
So the fit is supposed to be seamless. So, but the trick is that it can't be too tight either. If it is too tight and you try to put it down, sometimes you can seat this down, but if I try to push too hard, that it can create a crack in the bottom. So really there's a sweet spot. So it's something that's really very, very touchy-feely, you could say. But so when it is ready to go in, you put this down, I push it forward, and making sure I'm keeping pressure here to make sure that this does not raise up. I push down, because if I don't maintain pressure right here, what could happen?
Show the guys the inside. It's so tight. I was as in when it's in, just point it at the camera, because it's so snug. Absolutely. I mean, it almost looks like it. Wow. It's precise.
And so what I do when I first put it in, I'll go and I'll check for any kind of gapping. So I'll do my check with the light. I'll pull it up, check each side, check the front, check the back, and usually if it goes in and there's no kind of leaning or back half, it means that I did the side cut well. So then we would move on. After that, after I check for gaps, what you do, make sure it's seated in there well, and I apply pressure here and here, because that's where the clamp pressure is going to be applied. Just so I can ensure that I have a solid fit. Then what I would do is I would take the ruler and make sure it's super, super important that you maintain the flatness of the edge of this ruler with the frets, because any kind of slight movement or maladjustment side by side could throw off the angle measurement. So then I take this and we measure our, so We use the 32nd side, so we're measuring down to the 32nd, but we're actually work all the way down to the 64th of an inch.
Wow.
Because we work in half steps. So I would take it and place this ruler right above, dissecting where those holes are.
Yeah.
And that's riding at about 13, which is at our set tolerance. And we have our tolerance board right here. Usually they come a little high, so what I would do is take it back to the block and we would start our cut on the bottom. This is another super important part. This hand is only pressing down and this hand is only pushing forward. And that's like something that was really hard to like pick up when I first started. But it's also super essential that where you apply pressure on this part of the base of the heel is centered. So I kind of take my hand and I just kind of place it right there in the middle. As I'm going back and forth, I'm paying attention to the sand pattern to tell that which tells me if I'm hitting it too hard on one side, which then I would then have to correct for. After I do my swipes, I usually start off with about 10. I come back, repeat the same process, check the angle, and then same thing, check, we're at 13.
Do you ever get,
and then,
is there ever a sense that you're expected to get through a certain number of guitars in a day, or is it very much, look, you take as long as you need to do to make sure everyone is perfect, or it seems when
you first start out, you really do shoot for quality. I mean, here we try to shoot for as perfect as possible. In doing that, you do start off slower, but coming with time, you do get faster and are able to just maintain that level of perfection. So after we get to this step, what we normally would do is we would take, this is checking our side-by-side to ensure that if my side cuts were off, if hypothetically say I did one extra swipe on one side, it would be lean a certain way. So we would take our...
This is so much more detailed than I imagined.
And to be honest, this isn't even the half of it. This really isn't the half of it. But then we come back in, and we check and make sure that isn't rocking that bass line.
Yeah.
Check it on the other side. So that means that my side cuts were even. And then after that step, I take it out. I use this tool here. It's super sharp, so I have to be super careful when I'm doing this. But I come in and score the inside. And in my personal opinion, I feel like this is one of the most important parts of the cutting process, because without these scoring,
this is somewhere for the glue. This is to let the glue, the adhesive, adhere properly. Yeah,
absolutely. And if this scoring wasn't here, I mean, it greatly decreases the structural integrity of the build itself. But yeah, after that, I would score the inside of the pocket on the sides, and then score the sides of the neck, the bottom.
You don't score this piece here, or
no, you do not.
No, so you only need one piece to be scored.
Right. If we did score the bottom here, that could possibly throw off the angle as well.
Right.
It's also super important when I'm scoring not to apply too much pressure.
Yeah.
Because that could also adjust the angle as well. So it's really a very delicate process.
Tell me about it. I love these bits. I love how accurate you are with the string spacing either side of the neck.
Absolutely. I have a few here if you would like to see me do one.
Yeah, why not? Let's see you do one.
That's what I was talking about. Usually when it looks like that, I'll probably rock it about 2-3 times on the sides. And I also look for things like fretboard overhang, and just to make sure that wouldn't throw off my cut either way. But when I'm doing my side cuts, like I said, I'm applying pressure right around here. But I go nice and light and not too far up. And not too far up so that I don't cause too much scratching. So a little closer. There it is. Now we get to this step. So check for gaps. Sometimes gaps do happen. Sometimes, like I said, even the slightest uneven distribution of pressure can throw off something like this. But I'm gonna come in. We're sitting at about just over 14. So to bring it down 1/32. I kind of have like a little algorithm I do in my head, just doing it for so long. But I'll probably hit this about between 8 to 10 times. So, and as I go, you'll see the wear pattern on the block. That tells me that I'm hitting it evenly.
Yeah.
That's just a little tool that I use. There we go. Now we're sitting at 13. Come in, check the side by side. There we go.
So are you gluing? I know you haven't scored it yet, have you? So you've got to score it, and then you're going to glue it though at this station, or does it go to a different station for gluing?
After it goes from here, it goes to my buddy Sam over here, and
he does the gluing, right?
Absolutely. So I go in.
I really feel like one of the things that Paul has done is he's managed to embed his crazy passion for perfection into the whole thing, and the staff. It's like I feel like talking to you reminds me sometimes of talking to Paul, just with like how just like it's an obsession.
Absolutely. I have a deep care for the product that we make here.
Yeah.
It's not only, it's not just a job,
right.
when you walk in.
Oh look, man, it's just crazy. I mean, and it's just. I love walking around guitar factories and meeting people like you that are just so passionate about what they do.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to show us.
No problem.
Really, really
no problem.
cool.
My pleasure.
It's a great job, and hopefully you're here for many, many more years. And I think was it 30 years, and then you get like any guitar you want in the whole shop.
Yeah,
so it's what are you going for? All right, take it easy, man.
You too.
All right, so we've gone through a good bit of neck body manufacturing, neck and body assembly. After the operations we just took a look at, we then refinish sand the entire guitar. So any of the, we took a look at some of the glue up stuff. That gets cleaned up. Any small, minute issues that may have happened during handling, they'll go back over and finish sand the guitar. It then queues up over here where it goes through another quality assurance inspection. They're going to look over all the details of everything from how the body was sanded, the inlay, how the veneer was put on, the neck, everything else, and then essentially it's going to move into the finish area.
And I'm excited about the finish area because I think, when I think of Paul Reed Smith, I think of like these banging flame tops and beautiful colors, and I guess, it's the guitars look amazing already, but now we're going into that like, bam, this is where the magic dust gets sprinkled on.
You do get to see, the pieces of wood are so beautiful at this stage, and you really get to, hopefully we're adding to that as we go through the finishing process. All right, so Lee, this is Matt Ariza.
Hey man,
nice to meet you. Matt's been with PRS guitars for 30 some odd years, a long time.
It's the only job I ever had, so.
That's crazy.
Matt has done a variety of different jobs here. He ran finish operations for many years. We worked together in production. Matt's currently a finished engineer with Paul Reed Smith guitars, so he helps with a lot of process, finish formulation, and really is one of our in-house experts over the years.
When you think Paul Reed Smith guitars, as you don't know anything about how they're made, the two things that you think are third inlays and unbelievable finishes. It's like, it's such an important part of that initial, what is it that draws you to the guitars. So, so we're going to go and see some processes and how it's all put together.
Yeah, we are. Matt's
we'll show you how we suffer through this because it's not easy. Generally, you saw all the wood shop operations. This is kind of the beginning of the when it goes into the whole finish world. So this is how it's going to arrive. Basically, nothing, no frills. It's got a color obviously associated with it. And it's going to be stained with according to that mod track color. There's a wood library right now. So like I said, they just put the color designation, just stain it. You know, they tape it up accordingly, tape up the fingerboard, depending on whatever's necessary, anything else. And
so we're staining at this. There's no spraying. This is just applied with a sponge or something.
It's actually done with a rag. We've tried the sponges. We tried all kinds of stuff, but that binding is so thin right there that you got to have like a weird control because if it's too wet.
Right.
It'll bleed right through it, and it just you almost have to.
I mean that's something where credit to you guys in here. The line between where the stain stops and the reveal binding starts is so sharp. You guys are famous for kind of mixing your own batches of paint rather than I know when we were at Gibson in the week they're buying in paint from a third party, so I guess they get maybe that consistency of color. You're kind of quite famous for almost going like every time we mix up a blue, it might just be like 1% different to the last time we mixed it, so you always get a slight variance in the stain.
Well, I mean, a lot of companies, we use, Paul started off with, believe it or not, out of all the things, most people in the industry use like an aniline dye or a wood dye. He started using leather dyes.
Right.
Which is a very bizarre, take on that because it's like, they're meant to be baked on and kind of like, kind of work.
Yeah.
But they seem to be really color fast and just really bright. So he kind of went into that. And we haven't gone too far away from that. We still use a lot of leather dyes, but we use a lot of aniline dyes and we mix them all together.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's how we get a lot of variety of different colors and everything else. That's an old Santana yellow. That's been there since almost the beginning, so.
What, the same bottle?
No, but it's actually, it looks like it, doesn't it? And see, it says Amber Wash.
Yep.
It's a take on a Baltimore, like a vocal thing, because they don't say wash, they say wash. So.
Right, see, they are all leather dye. Well, it says leather dye on the bottle, so that goes on with a rag, and that's what, like, is this like 1 or 2 coats, or is it down to the operator?
It depends on what the color you want to bring out, and whether this is probably 2 coats, and then they're going to sand it all out.
Right. And if you're trying to do bursts or fades or whatever, is that where you're just building different colors around the edges?
Yeah. But generally with a burst, we sprayed with a spray gun. But generally all the stains are done, usually 1 layer, unless we do the fades and everything else.
Oh, so I see.
It goes into the spray room, and they spray a light, what we call a whiz coat, which is just a really a cut nitro.
You kind of see that because it almost looks like a wax finish, doesn't it, when it goes on? But that's a very thin nitro top coat, or not like a base coat rather.
Yeah, it's the same as our top coat. It's the same. We try to spray the same material throughout the whole process. But it's basically to prepare, basically to protect the guitar from the filler, which is what they're putting on right here.
Right.
And as you can tell, it's a pigmented wood filler.
Yep.
And if you put it on raw wood, it's definitely going to stain the wood. So we spray that little light coat of nitro on there just to kind of protect and keep the color, but also fill that grain and give it that color that it needs. So.
Look at the color it goes as it goes on. It's just, it brings out really makes the grain pop, doesn't it? And
so it doesn't look so punky,
Yeah. That's beautiful. So now we've got the stain, we've got this very fine finish on there and the filler, the grain filler.
And that gets done twice. Like I said, it speeds you through the process.
Yep.
But there's a lot of dry time between everything else.
Right.
So it gets grain filled twice and whiz coated twice. And then it comes to our QC department, and this is where they inspect. The 3 guys there, they're basically inspecting and cleaning everything up, getting any grain fill or anything else. And she's our final QC. She checks it all over and makes sure that there's no scratches from the wood shop.
I always think the Santana's one of the. It's got such a beautiful. How do you? when you've got the inlay on here, are you able to just stain over that because it just won't absorb into the inlay? So you're not sort of masking the inlay off, but that's beautiful. And what are you? You're just checking for none of the finish has bled into the binding and the.
I'm basically checking over for any handling or process errors that have occurred from any steps previous to this bench right here.
That's cool. Well, I must admit, you guys do an amazing job here. Like every PRS we get looks unbelievable. So thank you very much. Yeah. Aha! We get to see. This looks like something out of a. It's like something out of a like one of those sort of movies where you've got people making James Bond nerve gas or something, and they can't go in here. So
this is just the base coat. We call the base coat is the sealer coat. So basically, we're putting the kind of building nitro coat to level out to make sure you can try to get all the sinks and everything out. Yeah. Now that's being done by a robot right now. Oh, on this side, the other side is all our hand spray stuff and everything else.
If I go back over the last 15 years or so of the PRS spraying, there's been a lot of conversation about what mix of nitro you're using and how similar is that to the way guitars were maybe sprayed back in the 50s and stuff. And I think it's changed a little, hasn't it, over the last 10 years, how you're spraying the stuff, or the product you're using?
The product has changed. I mean, like I said, in our previous incarnation, we were spraying two different systems. We were spraying a polyester base coat with a acrylic urethane top coat, and then we kind of went to the more vintage side and started started spraying with the nitro. But Paul really got he's always asking the question, what's under the hood and all this stuff. So he wanted to know what the difference was with old nitros compared to the new nitro. And it was playing around with the plasticizer, which is basically the flex additive in there. And he came up with a formula that we use now. So we're kind of on this edge of like, it's sonically being good, but it's
because the plasticizer is the part that stops it from cracking, I guess.
Yes, it does, but it also kills sound too.
Yeah, so you've got this. I can completely see Paul, trying to go like, how do I do this? Because I want to use the lacquer that makes the guitar sound best and resonate the most, but I don't want the guitar to look like it's cracking and finish, issues with it. So what have you? So he just came up with his own proprietary blend of just the right amount.
We just basically took the nitro, took it all out, and just kept adding it until we got it to where we wanted it to be. That it sounded good, and it didn't crack and anything else.
And so that's everything Core now uses that sort of nitro blend, is it?
S2s as well, though.
S2,
so that's everything under this roof.
Anything as long if it's made in the USA, that's how it's sprayed.
Yep.
Cool.
More sanding.
There's so much sanding in the PRS factory. How much sandpaper do you get through here?
Oh my God! But I mean, everything's sanding. If you think buffing is basically sanding, also.
I suppose.
But, that's what these guys are doing. They're making sure. They're taking it. It dries for 3 days, and then they're leveling everything out.
Okay, so this is before this next stage of sanding. You can see the orange peel, can't you, in the finish. So it doesn't feel smooth yet.
No.
So obviously you've got another. So there's a sanding process, and then after the sanding, is it just buffing, or is there another finishing process?
We go through another
finishing process. That's cool. I mean, I'm not sure we'll pick that up on here, but you might just get the sense at this stage you can see the colour, but it hasn't got that rich gloss kind of finish to it yet. I don't know if you heard that. Matt was just saying they use so much sandpaper here that if they could save $300,000 a year by just changing to a slightly cheaper grade of sandpaper, which they haven't, by the way.
All right, after it's sanded, it comes to, this is our prep area. This is where the preparation.
Can I take this one down?
Absolutely.
So I always find this process kind of weird because it kind of feels like it looks like that, then it gets sprayed, then it goes to sanding, and then it comes back and looks like it did.
Yeah, no, trust me, it's all ugly. It'll get pretty, I promise.
But it is, you do now have the sense that the guitar is now sort of encapsulated or whatever. It's like it is sort of a sealed finish now, which it obviously wasn't before it went through the spray and the sanding. But it's such a it's a what's the right word? It's just a very labor-intensive process.
Oh yeah. It's trust me, we suffer for this. And like I said, depending on the color, they're going to mask off anything that's not going to get. So
I think we saw somebody doing the masking maybe, but while we were waiting for you, and again, it's like such a precise hand, isn't it, to just get that to go on straight?
You can't have a shaky hand.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Okay, so this has now been masked up, ready to go for
color.
color.
That's where I'm going to take you next to show you where we're spraying the color.
Cool. I can see guitars hanging up now that look a little bit more like they're nearly ready to go, aren't they?
Yep.
So you've got 2 booths here. So every guitar goes through here, just the 2 spray booths, do you?
Just for color, yeah. And that's our private stock booth also. So we really only have like really one color booth that we really spray a lot into.
So when you say color, I don't really understand. The guitars are a color before they get in here. So what do you mean by that?
Well, like I said, we have the stain color. Now we have the nitro color coat, which is generally whether it be a metallic or be like a black back or anything like that. We don't stain those.
So is this the middle bit of the guitar is the stain, and then the where it's gone dark around the edges, that's the spray. That's the color spray that he's applied.
And that's what he's doing right here.
And I guess this is where, I mean, I love watching YouTube videos of guitars being sprayed because they kind of, I always feel like it's actually a fairly fast process to see the sort of the gun going around the edge of the guitar. But all of a sudden, I mean, it's obviously a job that requires a lot of experience and a steady hand. But you do all of a sudden get these magical kind of burst finishes just almost appear in front of your eyes as the gun sort of goes around.
Just pops out. You're like,
it does look amazing.
Yeah.
In fact, did you, and I can see in the other booth, hopefully Pete got a bit of footage, there's like one of those sort of more bluey, denim-y, grey kind of colours, which is always, I think, one of those signature PRS colours that just looks fantastic. Oh, and they're spraying the backs of the necks as well.
Yep.
So is this just to build up the colour, or is this the actual gloss finish?
No, we're going to get to that.
Okay, so this is just the colour.
Yep. Because it's going to get to another section where they clean up they pull the tape, they clean the bindings and everything else. So.
That's amazing.
Yep.
I mean, these guys are artists as well, aren't they? They're just... So this is an interesting one. So we've still got the body is masked off. So this is just about doing the back of the guitar with a clear kind of colour.
Yep.
It still blows my mind as well. You just think, I never realised you made as many guitars as this. It's some operation here now, isn't it?
Yeah,
it really is.
It's amazing from where we started. So.
I don't know if I can just turn this slightly. Look at that the leopard print. How amazing is that?
Well, that operation, like I said, these are all in queue. They already got sprayed. They're dry.
Okay, so they dry more matte than it looks like it's going on really gloss, doesn't it? But actually it dries with quite a matte sort of finish, doesn't it? So.
And then after this operation, it comes to these 3 guys out here.
Hey man, you all right?
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too.
That's what he's doing right now. He's scraping. So basically, he takes the guitar, pulls the tape wherever he needs it, and sometimes some of those lines are not completely straight, so he'll go back and straighten them out, and everything else. This is kind of
another one of
those like
things
you gotta have more skill than luck kind of thing.
Well, and I think again, it's another one of those things that people will often look at on a PRS guitar, and they see the precision of the scraping around the binding. And it creates that perception that, like, wow, well, if there's this much attention to detail here, the whole thing must be, incredible attention to detail. But this is the finish coat, right?
This is the top coat, yep. And this is what we have 2 robots that spray our top coat.
So we're not allowed to get too close here. I just realised this. Out the corner of my eye, I just thought that was somebody spraying it. I just realised it's a robot. It could do with I was hoping you'd get it as it turned. Yeah. Wow.
After they're queued up for like 3 days, and then they're ready for what they're doing right now is the fret level.
So three days sort of drying time for the top coat.
Yep.
It's interesting, isn't it? I've been in other guitar factories where they have the conveyor belt that goes around the ceiling. Is that just something you don't have installed here, or you prefer not to use it?
We'll get there one day.
Okay, so you think, because I always think it looks amazing when you see them, but it's okay. So these are all your guitars waiting to dry.
We do what we call fret level, where we dress up the frets and everything else is done before we sand or buff.
Wow.
Yep.
So another fret, because I think we've seen at least one, if not two, sort of fret leveling processes already. So this is like another final, just double check that everything's still okay.
Yep.
Is it getting it's the necks are all taped, aren't they? So you're not taking any sort of residual finishing off.
No, we're not. But like I said, just cleaning off some of the edges a little bit, and then they'll do the round over, so just feels really nice and everything else.
Cool.
So that's what these guys are doing now. They're sanding them.
Right.
They're taking it up to 3,000 grit, and again they're queued up and then ready to go to buff. We're trying to stay under 10 mils of total finish.
Right.
Yeah, but some colors are a little more stingy than others. I would take you over there. That's our buffing operation, but it's a high traffic area, so.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, buffing, fine. I know it's a little bit messy sometimes, buffing, isn't it?
So it's a high traffic area, and then this is what we call our turnaround, where they inspect it, make sure that any swirls or scratches, and it just keeps kind of bouncing back and forth to clean it all up. And then it's just ready for final assembly, which is...
It really feels, when you see the guitars in the racks and stuff, it really feels like you're getting close now to being able to ship this to a dealer or a customer, yeah. Look at these.
Yeah, these are...
The shine.
Yeah.
Stunning. Oh, well, whoever's getting that is a lucky person. There you go, 0371128 if you own that. Lucky you! Thank you so much for showing us around, man. It's, like I say, the finishing part of the PRS experience is amazing. So thank you very much. Take it easy, guys. See you later.
We're into our final assembly area. So we've got all these guitars in here staged and queued up for another quality assurance checkpoint here. So, and that's what this young man is doing over here, is he's going through a visual inspection of the guitar. He is also going to reference what we have as kind of an internal coding information inside the guitar to make sure that the color is correct, whatever color combination, all the other components, inlay, fingerboard material, all that just kind of normal stuff before it gets queued up for assembly. And there's a nice example. What you notice right away is it's a decent variety of the models that we offer. So these are electrodagged at this point, where the cavities are, we've got some shielding in here on both the electronics and the pickup cavities. But you can still see in here what we do along the way, which Hunter was smart enough to remind me of, is all the people who work on these things at various stages will usually initial the guitar. And it helps us kind of track who worked on what as they go through, from body sanding to finish sanding and everything else before they come up here. So we got a variety of stuff, and after they go through our quality checkpoint, the guitars move into this area and they get kitted. So, and what I'm referring to is essentially we have now determined all the components that are going to go on this particular guitar, right? So we've got our internal model identifier in here. They'll scan that. It's then going to generate what pickups, what potentiometers, what switches, what tuning pegs, everything else go onto the guitar. And then we will do a assembly kit that gets assembled in our electronics and parts area that corresponds with the guitar. So now they've got all the associated parts for the guitars on the racks here, right? Including
I see.
Little pick list. And,
so you just take a whole...
You take your guitar.
You'd find the guitar, you'd find the corresponding little blue tray, and this is everything I need now to make that into an electric guitar,
You got it. We have a separate group of people who receive that coded information. They put the kits together, they come out here, and it follows the guitar around. So I'd grab this guitar and this kit, and then it goes into our final assembly area, which we're looking at over here. So we do a variety of different operations, but essentially you're putting all the components on the guitar and the final setup and the play check as well. We are going to go through our final assembly area.
I don't think anyone would notice if I just stole this guitar.
And then we're going to take a look at some electronic stuff and pickup assembly, and then we'll come back out here and kind of finish up with the assembly process.
Perfect.
So this is Chad. He works in our winding area for pickups and has done a lot of other work in here, assembly work as well, right?
Yeah, pre-assembly and then set it for a few years. And I've been in final assembly whole 12 years I've been here.
That's just what I was going to ask you. 12 years. Chad is kind of really our in-house winding expert, and he oversees all the winding stuff as well as working occasionally on some prototyping stuff. So when we're bringing new product and testing new pickups down here, Chad is a huge help with the development, all that stuff. And Chad, I was hoping you could give the team from Andertons just kind of an overview of what you do down here.
This is basically coil town, I guess. We got our 2 winding machines. We use Marsilli winding machines. They're custom made. I think compared to a lot of other operations that they make products for, this is like kind of a smaller unit. Oftentimes these are running like, you know, automotive, like
relays,
transformers, coils,
right?
or the ignition coils, something like that, and it might be like a bank of 18 of these things going nonstop. So these are pretty compact units relatively.
Do you know what? I'd sorry to interrupt, but the only other time I've seen pickups being wound, it's been ladies with single load thing, and they have like a foot pedal to get the thing to start winding, and a little manual kind of counter to sort of see how many winds are going on. So this is substantially more high tech than that.
So,
Let me see this. So how many? So obviously you've just made like a single coil pickup here. How many winds did that do in that like 60 seconds or however long it was?
That was close to 6,000.
So I mean, it's rapid, isn't it?
Yeah.
I noticed it was doing the sort of moving backwards and forwards as it was sort of building up the, what's that, that's called, is it not scatter winding?
It's the wire path. Well, we do a variety. It depends on the pickup.
Yeah.
As Chad, I'm sure, can tell you, right?
Yeah,
we
so
have a variety of different paths for different types of pickups.
And you program in how you want it to sort of move back and forth. And
yeah, we have a lot of control over the layering with this machine. Probably more so relative to any other. We've had a number of winding machines that predate me, and so this is pretty much the latest and greatest that we've ever had. You can control TPL, step. I mean, we can control for a number of parameters, tension, of course. We can manipulate things quite a fine.
So when Paul is trying to come up with different pickups, is he kind of down there saying to you, look, can you program it to do this? You know, wind it a different way, different numbers, different wire.
Yeah.
And then just basically making tons of different prototypes to go and play and see what they sound like.
Yeah.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll play
I can
around
kind
with
of-
tension.
Yeah.
How many layers per turn.
There you go.
Right. All those things, and of course winds, and then we have a variety of different wire and gauge wire and coating thicknesses that we use for different applications.
And I guess with a machine like this, once you've settled on a final, that's what we're going to do, this will just consistently make that with a super high degree of accuracy.
Yeah, it's pretty good
every time.
So we'll verify all that stuff
wire.
where we'll use a separate piece of equipment.
We're making humbuckers right now, so I can make 2 at a time.
Oh, so these are just 2 coils from a humbucker ultimately, so that'll go together and make a single pickup.
And these are second gen, so that they will match together away. So, yep, take the
Oh, there you go. And these are going to end up being what, 85-15?
Yep,
treble pickups. Amazing.
Right.
That's cool.
The unsung heroes of PRS guitars,
That's it.
right?
If it wasn't for these guys,
here, man.
nothing would work.
No, and that's the truth. And that's, you know what? This is an important part of guitar making, because if you don't have your equipment running or running properly, you're not gonna get much accomplished.
Oh look, these guys get natural light.
Yes.
Luxury.
This is our electronics area, and generally, Lee, what we're doing in here is the completion of building the pickup after the winding process, as well as our kind of drop-ins and our sub-assemblies for electronics. So you can see in here there's a variety of stuff to support the pickup manufacturing, as well as different potentiometers, switches, depending on what drop-in unit they're making for a particular guitar. So there's an open assembly bench here where someone's got a diagram up on their little screen here and some fixturing, and they're going to take the variety of components there and build the drop-in that will later on go into one of those kits that we were looking at.
You'll build the whole loom up and everything, will you? The wiring loom, and then essentially when it's put in, it's all pre-assembled.
You've got it, and they've got some fixturing here where they can, that'll hold their potentiometers and switches and allow them to work around and solder the various pieces in. We also have stuff for complete pickguard guitars where they do that as well.
Right.
And then throughout most of this perimeter wall here, we have our pickup manufacturing. So that's done in several different stages. We get the coils in that are wound that we just took a look at. This is probably a good visual example of all component stuff at different stages of manufacturing, where we've got the coils with leads on them that we were just looking at in Chad's area, and some here that are raw. They'll get the leads soldered onto them. Additional taping of the coils. You can see a variety of multimeters around everyone's bench, which is typical to just check the integrity of the coil as they're being manufactured. And we've got some slug installation going on over here with a variety of presses.
It's clever, this, isn't it? Because it's sort of
subtle.
It uses a font that makes it look like it's been done by hand, doesn't it?
It does.
But that's actually laser engraved, is it?
Because we were doing it with an engraver.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, tedious, and you have to have someone who has excellent penmanship with an engraver, which you definitely would not have me doing this up here.
Yeah.
Depending on what type of pickup it is, after the coil is assembled, it goes through a variety of different potting. So
this feels like this is one of the more old-fashioned processes of guitar manufacturing here, where it is just literally hot wax. Dip it in.
You are absolutely right about that. So we have both beeswax and paraffin down here, so the tanks are set up for different things. They're obviously temperature controlled within a few degrees, and then we have a time cycle depending on, because we have different waxing time cycles for different pickups, because it does impact the overall sound of the pickup. If you start analyzing and listening to these after going through different wax cycles, you will definitely hear a difference in
between beeswax and paraffin.
There's probably, I don't know that I could sit here and go, oh, that's definitely a beeswax pickup there, but I can say for ones that have been,
this is
saturated
ultimate.
through.
This is the ultimate element of the sort of, if you wanted the sort of the whole PRS thing in one, it's that there's beeswax for potting and there's paraffin wax for potting, and
That's right. So
Paul's decided which sounds better for which guitar.
That's right. We don't have anything cooking right now, but this is just one of the
do some donuts
wax
in there.
pots. Hey, you can throw it right. Stick your thing, make some candles. And then, of course, after the pickups are manufactured, they get analyzed back here. As I said, we got a variety of different multimeters back here, where they're checking the integrity of the pickup before it goes to our parts department and then kitted with a guitar. So we're going to go back to final assembly and then take a look at all the pre-assembly, final assembly, and play check operation. We took a look at our guitars that went through the entire finish process, or kitted up. So after our inspection, the first part of our pre-assembly setup would be the installation of tuning pegs, strap buttons, some of the components, and that's what's going on right here. Right now we're installing the grommets on this guitar. So you
I love
can
that
see
you've got
it's
a tool that does this.
A little
It's
pneumatic handheld device there that'll load it in with the correct amount of pressure, and he has verified the diameter of that hole, and there's a process to clean out all the finish before the installation of the grommet. And then over here we may be doing a strap button installation. There are also on our two-piece bridge guitars, we will install the studs over in this area as well. What else do we do over here, guys? We got tuning pegs, we've got strap buttons, we've got bridge studs, Does that cover it?
Putting in the tremolo claws and setting up the installation of all the hardware.
Okay, right on.
The
So
electronic hardware.
all that stuff happens over in this particular area for the tuning peg and studs and strap buttons, and then we go through to our pre-assembly area. Okay, so Josh is one of our final assemblers, as well as training for assembly and a variety of other, and overall, great guy.
And overall, is that on your business card?
It is.
Oh, and overall, great guy.
And you have been here, you said this morning.
18 years.
18 years, right. So
Yeah.
Josh has been doing this a long time.
Do they never let anyone go? Is that what it is?
No,
is
pretty
it like,
much.
Is it like some sort of 1960s horror movie, really, where you get in and then that's it?
You got about 2 years, and you either get out or you stay for life.
By that time, the hook is set.
That's what it is. It is incredible staff retention. Fair play. I mean, it's like there's so many people here that have been here for more than 10, 12 years. So that's unusual. But, yeah.
So when we come in, we get a guitar from over here, comes over, all the parts are in it, everything's wired up. We line the neck pickups afterwards, up, screw them down. We clean the shelf, prep the nut and install it, string it up.
So the nut hasn't gone in at this stage. You're putting the nut in at the right at the end.
We put the nut in at the end. That way we can shape it to the fingerboard. And if we run into finish issues, we don't have to replace the nut for it. You know? So yeah, we string it up, set the relief, set our 12th fret, file the nut slots. We've got digital gauges we use to measure the height at the first fret. We go through, we use these Music Nomad files now. File everything down, intonate it, pick up heights, basically get it ready to go.
And is there like a final check here as well? So you're playing it, checking that nothing's choking out. So this is literally the final stage before it goes in its case. And
so we have
finds
one
a home?
more check stage past us. So we play check it when we're done, and then it goes back into the room behind us, and they go over everything that we did. To make sure we did it right.
Check the checker.
And if not, they send it back and we fix it.
Oh, fair enough, man. Fair enough.
So we've got some finish repair guys back there too. So everything gets looked over again and worked on before it goes into a case.
Are you cutting the slots in the nut, or are they pre-cut
so we
nuts,
get,
or a
we
bit of
get
both?
the nuts with the slots pre-cut in them. They don't always, with this being hand worked, this doesn't always perfectly match the radius.
Right.
So after we've installed it, we'll have to go back and finish up the individual slots. But we've got our My Time material, we've got our bone nuts.
Because one of the things I always find with PRS guitars when you get them in is and especially the US ones, is there's never a need to tweak anything. You guys do such an incredible job, I think, of just, the QC, but right down to that, it's like you say, when you're talking about getting the nut height right, you're talking about like hairs of difference, aren't you, between, but no, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, we have, as far as our first fret specs go, when we're checking the height on here, we're within like 2 to 4 thousandths of each other string-wise, which is why we've got to use a digital gauge to check it.
That's great, man. That's very cool. Well, look, thank you very much. It's good to meet you.
You as well.
Thank you very much for taking us through that. We're nearly there. We're just going to go and meet the man that checks the checker, and then that's it. We've been here 3 days so far, and we're just going through final QC.
Jordan.
Hey, Jordan.
My
Good to meet you.
apologies.
Nice
So,
to meet
and
you.
Jordan, you've been 7
years, yeah.
7? Oh, good guess.
He's like a relative newbie then.
Yeah, right.
Are you super strict? Are you like the guy everyone else in the factory's like,
everyone hates
me. He hates me.
I'm
No,
just
but
kidding.
it's because presumably that's, the buck stops with you, right? You get the final say as to whether or not a guitar leaves the factory or not.
Yeah, like if you guys open up a guitar and it plays like crap, that's my fault. So
that never happens.
No.
That never happens.
But yeah, we do have a very strict set of criteria that all the specs have to fall under. So I mean, we've got papers with all these numbers on them that we got to follow, make sure everything falls.
And you're doing that level of check, despite the fact that it almost feels like it's been checked at every stage.
Yeah.
You're doing another, just last.
So we use these to check the fret height or the action at the first fret and the 12th fret. So
if we look at this one here, this one should be, we want this to be between 19 and 29 thousandths. So it falls in about 23.5 thousandths. So that's right in spec. That's right where we want it. And we'll do the same for the 12th fret here.
Right now, normally I'll have the guitar sideways.
Yeah,
so
we'll put it in
the
player's
weight.
position. This one's at 77 thousandths, which is actually about 2 thousandths higher than we want it. So I'll just I'll adjust this knob here and lower that down a little bit. The spec is 75 thousandths. Just we'll lower it down a little bit so that's within our spec and send it on its way. Yeah, we've got the mock-out one here, which has the information like the model number, the color, so make sure the color's right, making sure the serial number's right. The first thing to do is check the serial number.
Right.
But also stuff like making sure the knob's the right color, it's the right pickups in there, the pickup ring's the right color,
Right.
Right bridge on it and everything like that, the right nut, the right truss rod cover, and tuners, making sure they're the right tuners and stuff like they're they're not too stiff when you turn them.
Right.
All that kind of, make sure they're seated on the back of the headstock. All that kind of stuff. Make sure the strap buttons are the right color, the hardware is the right color. So this is set to the correct torque. So we will check these and make sure they are all. And this one is. We do this to every one of these. But if it's not screwed in enough, you'll get a few turns.
Right,
out
you'll
of
get
it,
a few turns
and
out.
you'll feel it's
Right.
set.
We've been selling USA PRS guitars and Andertons for 25 plus years. I'm honestly trying to think if we've ever had to send a USA one back because of, when they arrive with us, obviously we'll do a similar, not quite to the detail, but we'll obviously do like a check.
Sure.
And I don't think we've ever had to. I mean, and I know from speaking to the guys at Paul Reed Smith Europe, who also check everything before it comes out. They're again saying like the USA failure rate is minuscule. It's just like, so you guys do an amazing job. So there's nobody in here right now because they're on their break time. But yeah, so we have cases. The first time I've seen cases.
Have cases, right? We do. So this is our casing area. So we variety of different operations aside from just putting the guitar in the case, right? They're going to verify some of the stuff that we talked about earlier as far as the color of the guitar. They're all cataloged, so we have most of these guitars, I think probably everything at this point, will stick in this little photo booth, and I'm sure you guys have been sent probably pictures of guitars and available stuff that comes to stock.
Yes, so I think it's not that the guitar itself comes with a photo, it's when we're looking through what the European distributor has to sell, we'll see photographs of, which by the way, our guys can take you through that as well. So if you're interested in buying a PRS guitar, you speak to one of our guys, they can also, they can show you the pictures of what might be available as well as what we'll have in stock.
Right, so as you can see in here as we get started, there's a variety of checks that we're doing here. Okay, so we've got George here in our final checking area, and I was hoping you could just walk us through what we do here in our final casing area.
Yeah, no problem. So what we usually do, we pick up a guitar from over there that's come from the guitar tech area, and we're like doing the last eyes, the last everything on it, just kind of make sure everything's perfect before it goes out to the people. Want to have a good product. So
is yours more of a visual check?
Pretty much, yes. It's already been way checked. Like we're looking for scratches, smudges, debris, like all the really small stuff. Yeah. Like really small stuff that they kind of like, they do everything they need to do. They do a quick little checkup. You kind of get in depth, but we like get really in depth. So I like to kind of give it a wipe down first, get all the dust and everything off of it with wax and grease remover. Kind of smudges it up a little bit. Get rid of the plastics. Go down the neck. Make sure there's no chipping, which we have some right there. So that'll need to be fixed. A little bit right there.
Let me see how.
Okay.
We're looking for little small stuff like that.
Kidding.
Yep, we look
You're
for.
gonna fail it for that, are you?
We'll probably kick it back and have somebody throw that back in and put a little glue on it, get it sanded back up.
I think it's fair to say most manufacturers would pass that.
So. Oh yes, this is our and this is even our midline one too. So
I've never seen that happen before, so it's kind of a first.
so that right there, I'd probably mark that up.
Yeah. That's mad. The level of perfection you're striving for here is
Oh, like the max.
insane.
Yeah. And like you say, it goes for midlines, for bolt-ons, everything. Like that right there, I'll probably want to fix that right there.
I'm not even sure I can see what you're... Oh, right, it's like a pinhead.
Yep, but it has, it's
no,
enough that
I see it.
compound kit to get in it.
Yeah, yeah.
So we want to get that out of there. We use this right here. And if it's smaller, bigger than that, we send it back.
Right, so we have a little stencil.
I love it. You'll never see this. Well, maybe you will. So yeah, if it's bigger than the 0.015 dot there,
yeah,
it's got to go back.
And you can have only a certain amount of those
with
an A
like,
surface,
so like
B
this
surface
here, we can have 2. We can have maybe, I think maybe 3 on this one. The neck, back of the neck is usually pretty good. We have a couple. We have a chart around here. I just kind of remember.
Yeah, sure. You've done it for so long.
So let's just say I was going to go.
Right,
ahead.
we go through and then.
So then what we do is we will buff out any like scratches that we can do, and then like with the cut wheel, it takes the scratches out, and then we do a polish buff. So get it shining, get it everything, take off all the plastics, like shine up all the chrome and everything. Then we run it through AX, put it in our system, saying it's ready to go. And then basically put it in a case.
I'm sure we can imagine what putting in a case looks like.
Yeah, and so so like a midline like this, we end up going with these gig bags over here. It's just one of your gig bags. We'll take them out of the plastic.
Yeah.
We get them shipped in. And then these are for your core.
Yeah.
So we got these, and then like wood libraries, we end up doing the ones that usually have.
I've seen a couple of wood library cases just over on there.
Yeah, the wood libraries are the ones that are over here.
Yeah.
They're usually one-offs and stuff like that. They kind of fit the actual guitar case itself.
Yeah, yeah.
So and they usually have and this is actually like leather, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they get a little bit.
They're beautiful, aren't they?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe we're just as look at the cases just as much as we do the guitars for bit marks and dings and all kinds of stuff like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we actually have a few of them sitting over. Ready. Actually, we took them back earlier, but we had 3 or 4 of them that we're kicking back.
That's great. That's great. So yeah, so when you buy a PRS guitar, even the case is going to be immaculate as well.
Definitely.
Brilliant.
Everything.
Brilliant.
Awesome, George. Thanks you very much. Appreciate it.
Good to meet you, man. Yeah, you too. Yeah. Okay, so that was fascinating and inspiring and great to meet some of the PRS employees.
Yeah.
I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. It takes quite a long time to take you around a factory and for you to get a sense of all the different processes. You've been an amazing host. Your understanding of what goes on is insane. Pretty sure it sounds like you could slot in and do any of these jobs if you wanted to.
No, they'll keep me away from that. Yeah.
But thanks a lot, man. It's been
pleasure.
Great. Looking forward to another nice night out tonight as well.
Yes.
If you guys have any comments or whatever you want to put below, I'm sure either one of our team or one of the PRS team will maybe try and help answer it. But I mean, yeah. It's just amazing, and if you ever own a PRS guitar, you get to see kind of how it was born, how it was created.
That's right.
And I hope you feel even more excited about owning one now than maybe before you knew how they were made. So it's really cool.
A pleasure to have you guys here. Thanks again for coming out, Lee.
Not at all. Not at all. It's all our pleasure.
All right.
See you later. Kind of a shame to be going.
Yeah, it is.
Although,
it was a wonderful time.
We do get to now go to Martin Guitars in
we
Nazareth.
Do. Yeah.
Anyway.
Come on.
Let's head
it was
to the
cool
car.
rental car as well,
It was amazing. Yeah, I mean, what an upgrade from the RAV4.
I know.
But anyway, are you driving or am I?
I don't know. It depends on which side the steering wheel's in.
Absolutely.
You drive.
Still, okay, I'll drive. No problem at all. It's fantastic. Yeah. Anyway, right.
See ya.
See you next time.